Hey, boss.
I'm ready. Make this a quick one again. Okay, I'd like to call the June 27th, 2022 Budget Committee meeting to order. And there's Danielle. And we'll start with a roll call. Christopher Wolf.
Here.
Ned Carpenter.
Here.
I'll mention Richard LaSavoy and Brian Hickey are excused this evening. Roger Caddy.
Here.
Daniel Harnan.
Here.
Dan Smith.
Here.
That's all of us. Oh, Brian Ward, I'm sorry, Brian Ward.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up is public comment, and I'll open it up at 6:34. We'll wait for the people to come through the door to give us some comment. Seeing no public comment, I will close it at 6:34. Now I would like to introduce the interim superintendent, Todd Allen. I had the pleasure of meeting with Todd last week, so that he was on board with how we were setting up our meetings and stuff in terms of school 1 month, town the next, and everything. So Todd, if you'd like to get up and, sure.
As Mike said, my name's Todd Allen, I'm the interim superintendent here in Newmarket. Mike and I did get a chance to connect last week or the week before. It's all blurring together. I'm trying to remember when it occurred, but it was excellent to get a chance to talk with Mike, talk about the budget process in this community. I did want to say, before I even took the job as interim superintendent, one of the first things I did was take a look at all the budget documents that are available on the school district website in particular, and I was immediately very impressed at, number one, the process and the rigor that it goes through. And the budget timeline, it's very clear, there's a very careful, methodical process. So that immediately jumped out at me. But also, in a moment, I'm going to turn things over to Jenna, and just the caliber of financial reports that are so well done, balancing the budget numbers, but also with a narrative that is written in a way that many people can understand, so the community can better understand the process we're in. Very impressive. Just a little bit about myself, since this is the first time I met many of you. I spent the first 36 years of my educational career working in the Western School District right down the road. I've been a resident of the town of Lee, again, next town over for most of that time. I've been very familiar with Newmarket as a community. I'm a runner, so I've been over here many times running the various half marathons and races that you guys have over here. So the community has always been very special to me in that regard. I've also had the opportunity over the years to connect with the Newmarket schools. I mentioned at my interview that one of the things that I was engaged in 10 years ago when I was principal of Oyster High School, we began a process with the town of Newmarket to discuss the possibility of tuitioning Newmarket kids to Oyster High School. And obviously, as a community, Newmarket made a different decision, which, by the way, I think was the right one for your community. It was a great opportunity for me to spend a bunch of time getting to know the community, the schools, looking at the demographics and looking at how the two communities were similar and so forth. So I do feel like there's a real kinship there between the two communities. So that being said, I thank you for having me here tonight. I have been on the job, my first official day on the job was May 31st, so I'm not going to stand up here and tell you I'm an expert on the Newmarket School District budget at this time, but fortunately for me, we have an exceptional business administrator in the district who is an expert on that. So it's okay with you, Mike. I'll turn it over to...
Yeah, just wondering if anyone has any questions right now for Todd? If not, then yeah, Jenna, take over.
Yeah, the question I have, the
change in administration, is that, do you think that's going to have a negative effect on causing, increased staff turnover or difficulty of hiring or any of those things for the next school year?
Well, I can tell you right away, we are fully staffed right now. I announced, in fact, there'll be an article in Seacoast Online here coming out very shortly, that we've hired a principal for our high school, an incredible gentleman in Foreman, coming to us from Portsmouth High School. We have filled we changed it from an assistant superintendent to a director of curriculum instruction and assessment. We filled that position with an exceptional candidate, Patty Wands, who was coming to us. Her previous experience was in SAU 16 as the principal of the Cooperative Middle School, so she's got significant experience. So as far as the reaction that I have gotten as we've done the recruiting that we needed to do to fill these positions, it's been extremely positive. So I guess the short answer is no, I don't think there's any long-term ramifications of the turnover. Certainly in the community, I think when you have 4 senior leadership people leave at the same time, that does cause some stress, and I think rightfully so. The board was very concerned about it and wanted to move quickly. I have conducted interviews with all the people who are departing and really trying to get a handle on the reasoning behind why they're leaving. There's no connection between any of them. They're all leaving for individual reasons, for various, and I would say almost entirely it isn't because of the Newmarket school system. It's more of a personal family decision that people are making. With there being a pandemic, I think that's caused a lot of people to rethink their professional priorities. Moving forward, though, I think certainly professional positions, Newmarket is certainly well thought of.
Oh. You guys heard me,
Could
though?
you start over?
Okay, all right. Well, anywho, so bottom line, though, is I think hiring-wise, we're in good shape. I mean, there are positions that we have struggled a little bit, but everybody's struggling with what you would call critical shortage positions. Some of our specialists in special education services and so forth. But beyond that, we are fully staffed. And I would say, one of the things that stood out in my mind as I've traveled around talking to people in the schools and in the community is just how positive people have been and the energy that is there. I think the staff, certainly in the 2 buildings, is feeling very optimistic heading into the summer that things are falling into place. Certainly the board will have some decisions to make for their future in terms of who the long-term superintendent may be, and certainly that will have some impact on that. But right now I think we're in a really good place. We've got all of our key positions filled, and we're moving forward in a real positive way.
Roger, I'd just add to that, before Todd started with us as a board member, I can candidly say I was terrified, not so anymore. I
Okay.
feel really good about
Good.
what's going on.
Yeah, I was just concerned whether, that the professional staff, the teachers would, especially the younger ones would say, gee, what's going on here? Maybe I'll look around for another job. There are plenty of jobs available, and, turnover hurts us.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And actually, any sustained effort to improve schools requires continuity over a period of time, leadership continuity, but the boots on the ground that are actually going to make the changes need to be consistent as well. So, I mean, as I say, I think there's a real positive sense heading into the summer. I did get a question from a community member via email kind of asking about, do I think if we had an infinite amount of money and could pay people, top dollar, would that solve the problem in terms of getting all positions filled? And my response was, certainly money is important, and certainly looking at salaries and so forth and making sure people are well compensated is part of it, but also making sure your staff and your people feel valued and feel like they have a say and a voice in doing things. And certainly when you're looking at younger generations of teachers, I mean, yes, salary is a key thing and benefits are a key thing, but that feeling that they are part of something that they really find important and valuable is the key to keeping people. And that's certainly something we're working to try to create. And I'm Like I said, I'm thrilled that Andrew Corman is our new principal at the junior senior high. I'm thrilled that Gene Civiello, one of our speech language pathologists, has stepped into the role as assistant principal at the high school, junior senior high. And I'm thrilled to have Patty Wands as our director of curriculum instruction assessment. And I'm happy to be here. So 4 for 4, we're pretty happy with where we are. So thanks. Thank you.
Well, sometimes disruption can be a good thing. And welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you, and I like your energy.
Oh.
So,
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, great. Any other questions, or? Again, thank you for having me. I think it's wonderful. I'm going to turn it over to Jana Mellon, who's really the brains behind all of these documents, and let her share that with you. Just a couple of very quick things. As I said, very impressed with the quality of information that was being shared. I think she's going to go over it with you. Clearly, we're in a very good financial position as we end the year and she's going to talk to you about ESSER funds and all of the other revenue sources that are coming in that actually are making our financial picture pretty positive for the next couple of years. So, Jana, come on down.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you. Thank you so much for asking us here tonight. We have actually 2 sets of financials for you to present tonight. We hadn't seen you since we presented our quarterlies in April, so we have our quarterlies. And then we had done an interim as of May 31st to kind of, a brief, abbreviated version to kind of let you know where we were in terms of that time. Both sets of financial statements are presented in the same format that we've given them to you before. We kind of start by just kind of addressing expenditures, and then we look at, revenues, and then we kind of do a summary and talk about like our costs to complete. We don't usually do that on the earlier statements, like in September and December. It's a little too early to talk about that, but we've done our best to kind of estimate where we think we might be coming into June 30th, with the caveat that this is just talking about revenues and expenditures. It does not include typical year-end accounting adjustments that are made as part of our financial audit. So the numbers that you see here will definitely change, but this kind of gives you a sense of where we are as far as our budget that we asked for, the revenues that we anticipated, and kind of gives you a mark as to where we're coming in. So I'll start with the quarterly ones because they're a little bit more in depth. So, in a nutshell, basically, COVID is still impacting us on the revenues and the expenditures side. A couple bright spots on the revenue side. We've been able to capitalize on FEMA funds in our school district, and again, I'd like to shed some light on my team, the SAU team. I know I get credit for these, but there's a whole bunch of people that help to put these together, these financial statements, and help track expenditures and all of those things. And we couldn't do this without that team. The FEMA funding is a nice little unanticipated revenue source. It was not something that we had on our radar when we put our budget together for fiscal year '22, but we think that by the time the year is done, we will have been able to recoup or get reimbursement for approximately $520,000 worth of revenue that was not factored in. So we can't expend that money because it's a reimbursement, but it will help the taxpayers because all of that money would be returned as part of our unrestricted fund balance. So that's pretty exciting news. School districts don't often have a chance to talk about their revenues increasing, but that's good news for us. As far as expenditures, we're kind of estimating it changed a little bit between the quarterly and the May report, but as of the quarterly, we were kind of estimating just under $100,000, $997,000, just under $1 million in the differential between our revenues and our expenditures. And we were also expecting a surplus in our food service fund for a first time in many, many years. That's 100% due to the USDA waivers that were in effect. All kids ate free this year, regardless of free or reduced status. And were reimbursed accordingly from the USDA for those meals. So in a typical year, I think we had greater participation with this program, which was great. Hungry kids don't learn well. So it was great to see them participating, taking advantage of the meals. And so we have a little bit of an anticipated positive fund balance in our food service fund as well. And those things kind of gel together to give you, and they boil into our fund balance. A couple of significant things, I kind of call it looking down the road, but just to make you aware of some things that might have some significance in our next cycle. There was some pending legislation at the state level relative to reinstating a percentage of the state retirement contribution for teachers. That bill that I talk about in the earlier statements did not pass, but they did put through a bill that will result in a one-time reimbursement of 7.5% of the teacher retirement costs. We have to be careful with that because what that's going to look like, unless it's legislatively adopted going forward, is in the year that we get it, which will be fiscal year '23, it's going to look like a reduction in tax rate because we're not going to have to raise that money locally. But the next year, if they don't continue that, it's going to, without us doing anything, it's going to look like a tax increase. So just to make you aware of that, we'll take whatever we can get, but we'll have to plan as we go through kind of budgeting to try and keep things within a range for taxpayers.
Can you quantify that in roughly in dollars?
Yeah, it's an estimate, but I estimate it's about $140,000. Right, it goes away after that. And there's still a little bit of a lack of clarity around how that money is going to come to us. I just was at the NASBO meeting on Friday, and I asked the state and DRA, who were both in attendance, about how we might expect that money to come to us. And there isn't really an answer. There's a couple of guesses, but they did tell me, and I hope this is the case, it will not be a component of adequacy aid, because if they do that, that actually negatively impacts our taxpayers because it reduces the amount of adequacy aid that we get overall. So I think it will come as some type of reimbursement through the state, a payment, but I don't know how that's going to come to us. I'll hopefully have more to report on that soon. So that's another good thing. There was a possibility of extending the USDA food service waivers to allow kids to continue to eat free. As of this point, that looks like it is not going to be a reality. But recently, they did approve, and I don't have the exact numbers. What had happened is we got a typical, we'll say $3.60 used to be our reimbursement rate from the USDA for every free meal. And then when COVID hit, they increased the reimbursement rate to over $4, which made a difference. And so there was talk about reverting back to what was originally there. They've somehow landed in the middle. So it looks like we're going to get more than we used to get, but less than we're getting now. So, which, again, we'll take anything we can get. Yeah. So we also wanted to make you aware, there are some families that are, new to the school system or new to school in general, who may not have any awareness that there's ever a need to pay for meals, because if their child entered as a kindergartner a couple years ago, they've known nothing but free school meals. So we have a real effort this summer to try and get information back out to families to let them know that those waivers are ending, that once again, we're going to have to start, you can still apply. We encourage people to apply for free and reduced lunch. But for those that don't qualify, meals will revert to being a paid meal. So we're trying to get that information out to the community. Again, we really encourage everybody, even those that think they don't qualify, to fill out an application, because the income levels change every year. And even if you didn't qualify before, you might qualify now. So it never hurts to apply. So that's kind of our big push as far as like the quarterly statement. Before I go into the next one, which is kind of our interim, a little bit
Jenna, can
close.
you hold just a
Sure.
second? Christie, do you have a question?
Yeah, you know, we can loop back to it, but I really wanted to ask, it would be more of an educational question on how the state actually processes into the retirement system. Because what it appears that you're saying is that the state actually pays the town for the state's portion, and the town redirects that money into the state retirement fund?
So years ago, the state used to pay up to 35% for firemen, police, and teachers. In the 1990s, that went from 35% to 0%. So since that time, local taxpayers have paid 100% of the employer contribution. In addition to that, and I won't go too far down this road, for years and years and years, their actuarial balance at New Hampshire Retirement was underfunded. And they had an assessment done, I believe it was in the late 90s, and realized that they didn't have enough money to pay their retirees if they didn't make some significant bumps. So that's when the rates went from about 14% for teacher to 21%. So if you add in the fact that we were no longer getting state contribution and the employer portion went up significantly, that puts an awful lot of burden back on the local taxes. So in answer to your question, they don't contribute anything right now. This bill, they'll get a tally from New Hampshire Retirement, from what I understand, that will say this is the contribution Newmarket School District made for the teacher group. And again, that doesn't count employees, but just the teachers. And then my understanding is they will calculate 7.5% of that, and somehow they will get that payment to us in some undisclosed manner eventually. Does that answer your question?
I still think the money should just go right into the pension fund, but that's not my decision. Okay, thanks.
Well,
for the
we pay it first.
You pay it
We
first.
pay New Hampshire
100%
Retirement, an
and they're
employer.
reimbursing you for a portion of it.
You're right. That's exactly it. We pay 100% of it right now to the New Hampshire Retirement. Employees also pay 7%. So that amount goes to New Hampshire Retirement every 2 weeks when we do payroll. And my understanding is at the end of the year, they're going to take a look at that total number on the employer side and give us back 7.5% somehow. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on the April 9th, the quarterly financial reports? I know there's a lot of detail in there. And I don't want to go through it line by line because the narrative is kind of the same in the two reports, a little bit, same tone. Any questions on that? All right. So I'll move on to the interim statements, which are, again, as of May 31st, again with the caveat that this is just a display of expenditures and revenues. It doesn't take into consideration any year-end adjustments or accounting adjustments that our auditors will make when we have our financial audit. A couple things have changed, not dramatically so, but our estimate is a little bit lower in the general fund because we had some additional expenditures in those 2 months that came up, which is expected. And the food service fund balance also decreased a little bit because we had some lower participation than we had expected or predicted during those 2 months. But overall, it's still, it's still looking to be around 900,000, in the left from the expenditures and the revenues. We've already kind of talked about the New Hampshire retirement contribution. That will be coming, it's about 140,000, we estimate. The food service waivers did not get extended. We do expect a little bit of a boost in the reimbursement. And then one final thing to note, there is an opportunity in May, we were advised of they call it the School Energy Efficiency Development Grant. Everyone calls it the SEED grant. It's one award of $150,000 with a 10% local match. We have an application that we are going to try and use that money to help us with the Newmarket Elementary School window replacement. If you recall, we had a meeting in October, and adequacy aid money was put into a capital reserve, and one of those purposes was for those windows. Well, when we put the RFP out, and when the bid came back in, because of cost escalations due to supply chain and labor, it's more than what we had set aside in the adequacy aid. So what we're looking to do is, we're looking to see if we can supplement that with this grant money. And one of the things I have as an ask of you folks is part of the application, it's like there's a scoring rubric, and one of the items that we get points on has to do with community support. And I wanted to ask the Budget Committee if someone might be willing to craft a letter of support. I have an application, like a draft application here to show you kind of what we're looking to do. But it would mean a lot if we could get a letter from you folks to support our grant application. So I don't know if that's something you
need that letter?
The application deadline's July 20th. I would love to have it by like July 7th so that I have a chance to get all the materials together. I've already reached out to Senator Quokka Perkins. She's already given us a letter of support. And also Michael Cahill, who's our local representative, he is going to be writing a letter of support for us as well. The school board, I have a meeting with the school board chair to kind of review, you know, what we're looking to do. He's going to write a letter. So I think if we could get those 4 letters, I think that would be, you know, that would be amazing.
Okay, Roger will.
Great.
I will do it.
And Roger, just give me a call or whatever if you want to come up and look at the application. I can kind of walk you through what we've got so far, and maybe you could give me some feedback too, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I can draft something. You want me to circulate it to or give it to you and you circulate it to the committee? I mean, I think since it's going to be on behalf of the budget committee, I think they need to see it. Comment on it.
How
We
we
won't
gonna
have another meeting.
Comments, if we email it to each other, then as a meeting, town meeting.
Right.
Aren't all replying to like a group text or whatever.
Right, I don't think we could do that. I mean, I trust what you would put down.
Okay.
I mean, I think we're all supporting this effort.
Yeah, but I think that letter comes from you personally, not from the committee, right? So it's,
Well,
right,
but I think what she's asking for this on behalf of the budget committee, I would like to do it, you know, with the full committee support.
what we're doing as a school board is it's coming from the chair as an individual, is my understanding. I mean, Gary will identify himself as the chair of the school board, but it's not coming from the
You
board.
want me to draft it as, and then you send it, you sign it, and do it as
That's
chair?
fine.
That's
Fine,
what,
everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
And the other thing is we're happy to invite you up to the SAU. We could have the letter and the application if anybody did want to look at it before it was finalized. We're happy to do that too.
What I'll do is, once it's ready, I will send out an email to the board and say if you wish to view it, just go to the SAU office.
Yep, that's great. That would be wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
okay.
We really appreciate the support. Thank you.
I got a question on that adequacy from last fall. I remember
Yeah.
talking about that. How much was that?
498,255.
That was close to $500,000. And we knew that that wasn't going to be enough to.
Well, we were hoping. We have a couple projects going on. If you remember, there were some things that we talked about. One of them is an electrical upgrade at NES. That already has been put out. That's been awarded. It's about $75,000 to upgrade the electrical over there. That work is going to begin sometime after July 1st. It's probably already started, but we won't be paying for that till next year. So I have to consider that project when I look at that total amount as well. So what we did do, and it will be coming back to the board, is we had an initial bid. We had one bidder, it was Granite State Glass, and the bid results up on our website if anyone wants to see that. But it came in over $550,000. So what I did is I asked them to give an alternative proposal for a reduced scope, because we are allowed to request that from a bidder. So they have given us a reduced scope bid, which, you know, we can consider, the board can consider both of those bids. But should we win this award, we probably would be positioned to do the whole project. We might just have to phase it a little bit.
And that was for window replacement and HVAC, if I'm not mistaken.
An electrical upgrade. Yeah, yeah. So we have a couple projects that we're looking at there, but As all of us know, when we go to the grocery store, the gas pump or any place, what was in October isn't now. So the cost, the windows are fiberglass, just the materials alone have gone up a lot. Labor's gone up a lot. And I think it's really important, for us to at least do as much of the project as we can with the intent of the voters to take care of that. And then as we can, afford the rest rather than not do any of it. So that's kind of what we're looking to do. And we're hopeful that if we get this money, it will allow us to do the full scope of the window project.
Jenna, the ESSER funding, what are those funds available to be used for specifically? Are they restricted or?
By grant standards, they've been expanded, but by like our standards in the school district, they have to be confined to certain purposes. They give you groupings of purposes. There was a lot of discussion. The school district administration was extremely strategic as we looked at our funding buckets. And one of the things that we did as a team, which I think is so critically important, is the FEMA money that I was talking about is extremely limited in scope. There are very few things that school districts can capitalize on there. We found what those things were, and even though the ESSER grant could have covered those things, we pulled them out of the ESSER grant, said, nope, we're going after this. So what we wanted to try and focus on, and Todd can probably speak to it a little bit more, but we've put a lot of supports and services for social and emotional and mental health with those ESSER funds. We found that our students have had an incredibly hard time during this COVID time. We are funding another social worker, so we'll have 2 in the district instead of 1. We're doing family outreach. Yeah.
Many of the issues that I think have come up out of the pandemic. We also have 2 interventionists at each building who will serve multiple purposes. So particularly you'll hear people talking about learning gaps and so forth that have been created by the pandemic with kids being out of school and so forth. But we have two certified teachers at each building that will be able to work with kids in small groups to support remediation if they're behind, just to support classroom teachers as they try to identify learning needs. So those are in terms of positions that we have done that I think are that was one of the first things I noticed when I was looking at our use of the ESSER funds. Very targeted, very specific, based on wanting to support our students as we go forward. The other thing to keep in mind with the ESSER funds is we have till 2024.
Yeah, the first batch, there's actually ESSER 2, there was actually ESSER 1, 2, and 3. ESSER 1 we've used. ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 are still ongoing. We can use ESSER 2 funds, just about $650,000 until September 30th of 2023, so we still have more than a year for that. And then the ESSER 3, we had $1.4 million roughly that was awarded, and those funds can be used until September 30th, 2024. So, we're trying to get the most, the most longevity out of the funds to provide students the services for the longest window of time we can, and then kind of reassess as to where we're at. But we're trying to really serve the kids with that.
Sorry. Is this going into like the curriculum, or is this just additional support for students?
When you talk about say curriculum, I define curriculum as virtually any aspect of the education experience a child is involved in. And so certainly there's quite a bit that is put into developing MTSS type structures for the schools to analyze data and to recognize the learning gaps that kids are having and to address those. So that's a lot of what these initial positions are about trying to do. We still have some work to do in terms of how we're going to use the remaining money. One of the things that I'm very aware of is if you use the money, all the money for positions, the need for those positions may not go away. And when the money runs out, you have all these additional positions in your budget. So one of the things we're trying to do is to think about resources and so forth that we can put in place. For example, we have a new use classroom level to develop online content, explore learning, and so forth. So there's a number of things like that that are directly curricular related, that are supporting kids' learning. Again, we still have to take a step back, and analyze what are the tools moving forward in this next budget, figure out how best to use that funding. One of the things that, it's wonderful to have this as a problem, but one of the things that have ESSER funding is money came at us faster than we were expecting in schools. As you know, we develop our plans in multiple years, and having someone hand you a large sum of money in the middle of a particular year that's tied to, you have to use it for the benefit of students in terms of pandemic-related resources. It's not as easy to spend as you would think. One of the conditions is that you want to make sure you're not potentially disadvantaging the district down the road. You have to say, money's run out. Now you have to absorb it locally, and that can be a real problem as well. Do you have a question?
So can any of these funds be used for like the window project that you're talking about?
They can, but like I said, we tried to be very, very strategic about how we looked at all of the different funding that we have. You know, the community just invested, $39 million in our facilities. And so for a lot of communities that got this money, the first thing they had to look at was their HVAC systems. We were in a very fortunate position that wasn't something we had to worry about. We made some adjustments to ours to increase airflow, but we had virtually 2 new systems, at the schools. And that's one of the things that a lot of districts are spending the money on, is upgrading that to, help in a pandemic environment and, increase airflow and HVAC. So, we felt like, I don't know if any of you have had a chance, some of you have, to see the facilities, but they really are quite beautiful. There's been a lot of work there. We're really excited to kind of open them up again to the community this year. We haven't been able to do that. But facilities was not the area that we felt we had the greatest need in. We really talked about it, and it was that student support piece that we're seeing in so many different ways with so many different age groups.
Some of those funds to hire a couple of new mental health experts, teachers, whatever. At the end, these funds expire, they're spent not, and we just forfeit them.
We will not forfeit. I can pretty much tell you, as sure as I'm standing here, we will not forfeit any of these funds. But we're trying, we have 2 years, remember, we have 2 years to allocate them. So right now, we know what our concrete needs are, but we're not entirely sure how those needs might play out over the next 2 years. So we can always plan an activity, and then we can ask for the grant back, and we can shift priorities. We can move money and do different things with it. But right now, we wanted to make sure that we had adequate funds to support students the way that where we're seeing the real need.
So my question really is, at the end, those funds are no longer there. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7 total of 5. Is that, do they go away, or is that just absorbed into the budget?
We'll have recess as that. Just first, from a budget standpoint, I believe every year you should be looking at what you have.
And your staffing.
Is it still needed? Even the most fundamental things like, how many first grade teachers you have every year, you should be asking those questions.
Right.
And bringing forward all the things that are needed. At some point down the road, when the funding runs out, yes, you'll have that conversation about that. And one possibility could be that they're removed from the budget. Another possibility might be we're recommending let's roll some portion of it in the local budget.
Or reallocating resources from something else, We're hopeful that, but obviously right now with costs being what they are, it's a little bit challenging, but we've introduced, for example, a new facilities model where we have facility techs that are actually getting a lot of training to perform preventative maintenance for the district that we used to contract out for. So while we're outsourcing custodial services, we have these resident experts that are handling a lot of things that we used to pay other people to do. So we're hoping that in that kind of model, over time, we're going to see a cost, we'll see a cost savings, we'll see less in the professional services and be able to kind of make some gains there. But it takes several years sometimes for changes like that to really play out for you to see what you have. You have to give it a little bit of time. So, and we do have the benefit of time, a couple years to kind of play that out. So does anyone else have any questions for me on either set of financials? We've thrown you a lot at you tonight.
Yeah, I have just one question. I think that's left over. Your letter is very clear, very helpful. It's my understanding that professional services are up because of the custodial and food service.
Right.
And those two items look like they're 386,000 of custodial and 183 of financial, of food services, or 569, which is approximately equal to the 547 that the professional services is over budget. Is that correct?
That's correct, but you'll
Okay.
also notice that we have money sitting in salaries because remember, when we budgeted for this, we had budgeted as internal staff to fund these things. And then because we just couldn't hire people, we wound up having to shift. So the monies that you see in salaries and benefits, oftentimes those correspond to positions that are vacant, and we've used that money to fund some of the professional services to supplement.
But professional is fully staffed, is that correct?
Well,
Okay,
Yeah.
because professional salaries are just slightly over budget by your estimate for the end of the year.
right.
So that would imply that it must be fully staffed. So
Yeah.
But there are two people, two empty? Oh, for next year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, your para, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep, and it's not, to your point, Mr. Caddy, it's not a one-for-one, but you can kind of see the offsets. You can see the increases, the money sitting in the salaries and benefits, and you can see the over expenditure in the professional services line, so. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, you're picking up nearly $1 million when you take a look at the salaries that you were paying, plus the associated overhead costs. Looking at your $184,000 in, what you're calling additional expenditures, which is really the exit expense, how many employees were vacating in this exit?
can you clarify, are you looking at the June 9th or the March 31st?
No, I'm looking at the March 31st.
Okay,
Well, hold on a second. You've got your June 9th report, and it's based on May 31st
Yep.
expenses.
yep, which,
And you identify on page 5.
In the June
top
9th.
section of page 5.
yep,
You've got a $184,000, just rounding it up, of, what we call additional expenditures, which really are the costs of people leaving. So you've got the severance payments, sick day buyback, insurance buyback, and so forth. So these are the costs of people departing. How many people are departing?
just so that you know, the severance payments, those are for teachers that retired. It's part of our CBA, right? So we have contractual agreements for those. Most of those people are planned retirements. There were 6, I think.
6?
That would be grouped into that. The sick day buyback is a benefit that's offered. I think they can do up to 7 days back if they want to at the end of the year. So that we usually don't get a real firm number until we run the last payrolls, which we're doing right now, because people can ask for the days, but if they don't have the days on the books, we can't pay them for it. So that's when we get those firm numbers. And vacation payout, that's a Department of Labor law. So if somebody leaves and they have accrued vacation on the books, we have to pay them out that vacation. So that's not necessarily tied to a CBA or a benefit. That's just for people who might, even support staff who might be leaving. Certain categories can, yep, yep. Any other questions?
Mike, if we have anything that comes up, can we just email you, like if we have other questions that,
Yes,
okay.
yes, by all means, and I'll forward them wherever they need to go.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much. Again, we appreciate you giving us a chance to share our information. And Mr. Caddy, I'll be in touch with you. I'll shoot you an email, and we can set up a time to work on that letter and for you to,
Actually, do I want to
yeah,
speak with you?
yeah, sure.
I just wanted to add something for Jana. Thanks. This is a good report. You know, it's very helpful with your comments. You know, your note section and so forth is helpful as you're reading through. You identify things, and you read a little further, and the answer is there. So
Great.
it's a great report. Thanks for your
Great.
help.
Well, thank you. We hope that it's useful. And at any time, if you have any feedback or things that you might find useful or anything that you feel might be missing, we always are willing to consider, you know, adding if it's something that would be beneficial to you or the board. So, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is our meeting minutes approval of May 23rd. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any corrections or notes that anyone has? Okay. Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of approving the May 23rd, 2022 meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain.
I was going to ask if there are any abstentions. Okay. Do we have any other business to discuss? Yeah, I can start off by saying that we are off next month. There's no July meeting. Next one, I believe, is scheduled for August 29th. We'll be doing the town. So, I mean, in the meantime, if there's anything specific that you'd like to get from the town, please hit me alone, with an email. So I can forward it to town manager, and hopefully we'll be all set with that, too.
We have 2 vacancies?
We have 2 vacancies, and I'd really like to try to fill those if we could. We've got 2 months to work on it. Because after that, we're going to start getting into the nuts and bolts of the budget sessions. So if we could possibly look for a couple of recruits. I mean, you can explain to them that these meetings are basically once a month, an hour long. You know, so it's not like you got to dedicate your life to it. So if you have anyone, please ask them to send in a request to town clerk, I believe. Yeah, it goes to Terry. Yep. Yes, Terry Littlefield, our town clerk, tax collector. Get in an application, and this board is able to approve it because we're elected, so therefore we can approve whoever we put on.
Okay.
But it would be nice to get 2 more people so we get a full board.
So the application they get for Terry?
Yes, I think they've actually got an application online. I think you can go on the town website and get an application.
Okay.
But if not, then all they've got to do is contact Terry, and I'm sure she could probably email an application. I think really all it is just sending in an informal letter saying that, you know, you'd like to become part of the budget committee. You know, give a little bit of background, and that's it. But yes, I would like to get those 2 slots filled, if we could. Anything else?
Have we made a decision we're gonna meet, the last Monday, I guess? Is that?
The last
standard
Monday
format
of,
we're gonna continue to do?
yes, I suspect we might have some additional meetings as we get into, you know, the budget session, with the new budget. But
Yeah.
I know last year we pretty much stuck to the Monday nights, if I'm not mistaken,
We did,
so.
yeah, I just wanna put it on the calendar, if that's what we're gonna do, I just wanna have.
Yes, that's my intent. That's my intent.
So is there a July meeting or no?
There is no July
There's
meeting.
no July meeting?
There is no
Okay.
July meeting,
Great.
so
Okay,
next one is August 29th. And once again, please email me or send me a note just saying if you're unable to attend. Any other business? Anyone have any questions or?
oh, did we ever hear anything on the audit letter?
No, we did not. I will send out a request to Steve and see if we can get that ahead of time, ahead of the meeting. He's got too much to work on it, so.
Okay.
I know a lot of the stuff, as you mentioned, had to be redacted, which is no problem. I think we're just looking to see what that letter contained as our due diligence, I guess. So I will send that out
Okay,
by the end of the week.
thank you.
Anything else? If not, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roger first, Ned second. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, everyone.